We are back at it. Leaping Larry reading to you.
I would have been friends with Stalin.
Reading you, of course, some Stalin. The Collected Works, Volume 1. We're all the way down on page 210 if you were following along on this PDF that you can get from iskra.org for absolutely free. What a communist thing to do for a publisher. And if you were on the physical copy, we are on page 189, which, of course, is the work Marx and Engels on insurrection. The Menshevik. Oh, we're off to a spicy start already, I see. The Menshevik. NH. And we got a footnote here. NH is Noah Homariki, a Menshevik. The Menshevik, NH, knows that audacity wins the day and has the audacity to accuse the Bolsheviks, once again, of being Blankwists. See Simareth, number 7. And Simareth, Truth, a daily political and literary newspaper published by the Georgian Mensheviks in Tiflis in 1906. Sounds like a useless rag to me. There's nothing surprising in this, of course. Bernstein and Volmar, the German opportunists, have for a long time been saying that Kautsky and Babel are Blankwists. Jares and Millerand, the French opportunists, have been for a long time accusing Gauzt and Lafarge of being Blankists and Jacobins. Nevertheless, everyone knows that Bernstein, Millerand, Jares, and others are opportunists. That they are betraying Marxism. Whereas Kautsky, yeah, he's on our side right now, remember? Babel, Gauzt, and Lafarge are the others are revolutionary Marxists. What is there surprising in the fact that the Russian opportunists and their follower, NH, copy the European opportunists and call us Blankwists? It shows only that the Bolsheviks, like Kautsky and Gauzt, are revolutionary Marxists. K. Kautsky and J. Gauzt at the time had not yet gone over to the camp of the opportunists. Here's an interesting note from Stalin right here. I was wondering when we'd get a footnote like this. So here we go. Stalin of the future is noting here on footnote number 3 that K. Kautsky and J. Gauzt at that time had not yet gone over to the camp of the opportunists. The Russian Revolution of 1905-07, which greatly influenced the international revolutionary movement and the working class of Germany in particular, caused Karl Kautsky to take the stand of revolutionary social democracy on a number of questions. We could here conclude our talk with NH, but he makes the question more profound and tries to prove his point. Very well, let us not offend him and hear what he has to say. NH disagrees with the following opinion, expressed by the Bolsheviks. Quote, let us suppose that the people in the towns are imbued with hatred for the government. And we have 2 footnotes from this. So here, NH substituted the word when for the words let us suppose that, which slightly alters the meaning. And in number 5, we have here NH omitted the words for the government. See Alaki Trovetsky, number 6. And Trovetsky, Alaki Trovetsky, sorry, butchering that obviously, is actually translated A New Life, is a daily Bolshevik newspaper published in Tiflis from June 20th to July 17th, 1906, under the direction of J.V. Stalin. M. Devichvili, G. Telia, and G. Kidzavo and others were permanent members of the staff. In all, 20 numbers were issued. So NH substituted the words when for the words let us suppose and substituted the words for the government, or omitted the words for the government. So keep that in mind. Let us suppose that the people in the towns are imbued with hatred for the government. Fucking NH, huh? They can always rise up for the struggle if the opportunity offers. That means that quantitatively, we are ready. But this is not enough. If an uprising is to be successful, it is necessary to draw up in advance a plan of the struggle, to draw up in advance the tactics of the battle. It is necessary to have organized detachments and so forth. See Alaki Tritskovelli number 6. NH disagrees with us. NH disagrees with this. Why? Because he says it is blanquism. And so, NH wants neither tactics of the battle, nor organized detachments, nor organized action. All that, it appears, is unimportant and unnecessary. The Bolsheviks say that by itself, hatred for the government is not enough. Consciousness by itself is not enough. It is necessary to have, in addition, detachments and tactics of the battle. NH rejects all that and calls it blanquism. Let us note this and proceed. NH dislikes the following idea expressed by Lenin. We must collect the experience of the uprisings in Moscow. The Donets Basin, Rostov-on-Don, and other places disseminate this experience, preservingly and painstakingly prepare new fighting forces, and train and steel them in a series of militant guerrilla actions. The new upheaval may not yet break out in the spring, but it is approaching. In all probability, it is not very far off. We must meet it armed, organized, in military fashion, and be capable of taking determined offensive action. Unquote. See Partiyan Irevestia, number 6, is the footnote on this one, which says this passage is quoted from an article by V.I. Lenin entitled The Present Situation in Russia and the Tactics of the Workers' Party. See Works, 4th Russian edition, volume 10, page 98-99. Published in Party News, the organ of the United Central Committee of the RSDLP. Partiyanska Ivestia is published illegally in St. Petersburg, just prior to the 4th Unity Congress of the party. 2 numbers were issued, number 1 on February 7th and number 2 on March 20th, 1906. NH disagrees with this idea of Lenin's. Why? Because he says it is blanquism. And so, in NH's opinion, we must not collect the experience of the December uprising, and must not disseminate it. True, an upheaval is approaching, but in NH's opinion, we must not meet it armed. We must not prepare for determined offensive action. Why? Probably because we are more likely to be victorious if we are unarmed and unprepared. The Bolsheviks say that we can expect an upheaval, and therefore our duty is to prepare for it, both in respect to consciousness and in respect to arms. NH knows that an upheaval is to be expected, but he refuses to recognize anything more than verbal agitation, and therefore doubts whether it is necessary to arm, and thinks it superfluous. The Bolsheviks say that consciousness and organization must be introduced into the sporadic insurrection, which has broken out spontaneously. But NH refuses to recognize this. It is blankwism, he says. The Bolsheviks say that a definite moment, determined offensive action must be taken. But NH dislikes both determination and offensive action. All this is blankwism, he says. Let us note the foregoing and see what attitude Marx and Engels took toward armed insurrection. Here is what Marx wrote in the 50s. Quote, "The insurrectionary career, once entered upon, act with the greatest determination, and on the offensive. The defensive is the death of every armed uprising. Surprise your antagonists while their forces are scattering. Prepare new successes, however small, but daily keep up the moral ascendant which the first successful rising has given to you. Rally thus those facilitating elements to your side which always follow the strongest impulse and which always look out for the safer side. Force your enemies to a retreat before they can collect their strength against you. In the words of Danton, the greatest master of revolutionary policy yet known, de l'audace, l'encore de l'audace. See Karl Marx, Historical Sketches, page 95. And Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, Revolution and Counter-Revolution in Germany. See Karl Marx, Selected Works, Volume 2, Moscow, 1936, page 135. This is what Karl Marx, the greatest of Marxists, says. As you see, in Marx's opinion, whoever wants insurrection to triumph must take the path of the offensive. But we know that whoever takes the path of the offensive must have arms, military knowledge, and trained detachments. Without these, an offensive is impossible. Bold offensive action, in Marx's opinion, is the flesh and blood of every uprising. NH, however, ridicules everything. Bold offensive action, the policy of offensive, organized detachments, and the dissemination of military knowledge. All that is blankwism, he says. It appears then that NH is a Marxist, but Marx is a blanquist. Poor Marx! If only he could rise from the grave and hear NH's prattle. And what does Engels say about insurrection? In a passage in one of his pamphlets, he refers to the Spanish uprising, and answering the anarchists, he goes on to say, quote, "Nevertheless, the uprising, even if begun in a brainless way, would have had a good chance to succeed if it had only been conducted with some intelligence, say, in the manner of the Spanish military revolts, in which the garrison of one town rises, marches on to the next, sweeps along with it that town's garrison that had been influenced beforehand and, growing into an avalanche, presses on to the capital, until a fortunate engagement, or the coming over to their side of the troops sent against them, decides the victory. This method was particularly practical on that occasion. The insurgents had long before been organized everywhere into volunteer battalions. Do you hear, comrade? Engels talks about battalions, whose discipline, while wretched, was surely not more wretched than that of the remnants of the old, and in the main disintegrated Spanish army. The only dependable government troops were the gendarmes, the Guardias Civiles, and these were scattered all over the country. It was primarily a question of preventing a concentration of the Gendarmerie attachments, and this could be brought about only by assuming the offensive and the hazard of open battle. Attention, comrades, attention! For anyone who sought victory, there was no other means. Unquote. Engels then goes on to take to task the Bakuinists, who proclaimed as their principle that which could have been avoided. Quote, the splitting up and isolation of the revolutionary forces, which permitted the same government troops to quell one uprising after another. Unquote. See Engels, The Bakuinists at Work. And we got a footnote for that. See Frederick Engels, Die Bakunis und der Arbeit, Moscow, 1941. This is what the celebrated Marxist Frederick Engels says. Organized battalions. The policy of offensive, organizing, insurrection, uniting the separate insurrection. That, in Engels' opinion, is needed to ensure the victory of an insurrection. It appears then that NH is a Marxist, but Engels is a Blanquist. Poor Engels! As you see, NH is not familiar with the views of Marx and Engels on insurrection. That would not be so bad. We declare that the tactics advocated by NH belittle and actually deny the importance of arming, of red detachments, and of military knowledge. His are the tactics of unarmed insurrection. His tactics push us towards the December of defeat. Why did we have no arms, no detachments, no military knowledge, and so forth in December? Because the tactics advocated by comrades like NH were widely accepted in the party. But both Marxism and real life reject such unarmed tactics. That is what the facts say. Ekhali Tetravibi, New Life, number 19, July 13th, 1906, signed Koba. Translated from Georgian. Okay, and I actually am going to do a second one for you here. International Counter-Revolution. In many ways, present-day Russia reminds us of France in the period of the Great Revolution. This similarly finds expression, among other things, in that in our country, as in France, counter-revolution is spreading and overflowing its own frontiers, is entering into alliance with counter-revolution in other countries. It is gradually assuming an international character. In France, the old government concluded an alliance with the Austrian Emperor and the King of Prussia, called their troops to its aid, and launched an offensive against the People's Revolution. In Russia, the old government is concluding an alliance with the German and Austrian emperors, and wants to call their troops to its aid and to drown the People's Revolution in blood. Only a month ago, definite rumors were afloat to the effect that Russia and Germany were conducting secret negotiations. See Svenja Zemlya, number 3. And that is Northern Land, a legal Bolshevik daily newspaper published in St. Petersburg from June 23rd to 28th, 1906. Later, these rumors spread more persistently, and now things have reached such a pitch that the Black Hundred newspaper's Russia openly states that the blame for Russia's, i.e. the counter-revolution's, present difficulties rests upon the revolutionary elements. And Russia is the daily newspaper expressing the views of the police and the Black Hundreds, published from November 1905 to April 1914, organ of the Ministry of the Interior. The Imperial German government, says that newspaper, is fully aware of this situation and has therefore undertaken a series of appropriate measures, which will certainly lead to desired results. Unquote. It transpires that these measures amount to preparations by Austria and Germany to send troops to assist Russia in the event of the Russian Revolution proving successful. They have already reached agreement on that point and have decided that, quote, under certain conditions, active interventions in the internal affairs of Russia with the object of suppressing or curbing the revolutionary movement may be desirable and beneficial. Unquote. So says Russia. As you see, international counter-revolution has long been making extensive preparations. It is well known that for a long time past has been rendering counter-revolutionary Russia financial assistance in the struggle against the revolution. But it has not confined itself to this. Now, it appears it has decided to come to the aid of counter-revolutionary Russia also with troops. After that, even a child can easily understand the real significance of the dissolution of the Duma, as well as the significance of Stalin's new orders and Trepyev's old pogroms. And I got 2 footnotes here. In June to July 1906, P.A. Stolypin, the Minister of the Interior, issued an order to the local authorities demanding the ruthless suppression by armed force of the revolutionary movement of workers and peasants and the revolutionary organizations. And the 4th one is D. Trepov, the Governor General of St. Petersburg, who directed the suppression of the 1905 revolution. So, 2 scumbags here. So after that, even a child can easily understand the real significance of the dissolution of the Duma, as well as the significance of Stuplin's new orders and Trepov's old pogroms. It must be assumed that now the false hope entertained by various liberals and other naive people will be dispelled, and that they will at last become convinced that we have no constitution, that we have civil war, and that the struggle must be waged on military lines. But present-day Russia resembles France at that time also in another respect. At that time, international counter-revolution caused an expansion of the revolution. The revolution overflowed the borders of France and swept through Europe in a mighty flood. The crowned heads of Europe united in a common alliance, but the peoples of Europe also extended their hands to one another. We see the same thing in Russia today. The old mole is grubbing well. By uniting with the European counter-revolution, the Russian counter-revolution is steadily expanding the revolution, uniting the proletarians of all the countries, and laying the foundations for the international revolution. The Russian proletariat is marching at the head of the democratic revolution, and is extending a fraternal hand to, is uniting with, the European proletariat, which will begin the socialist revolution. Oh dear. Is well known, after the January 9th action, mass meetings were held all over Europe. The December action evoked demonstrations in Germany and France. There can be no doubt that the impending action of the Russian Revolution will still more vigorously rouse the European proletariat for their struggle. International counter-revolution will only strengthen and deepen, intensify, and firmly establish international revolution. The slogan, "Workers of all countries unite," will find its true expression. So go on, gentlemen, keep it up. The Russian Revolution, which is expanding, will be followed by the European Revolution. And then, the last hour will strike not only for the survivals of serfdom, but also for your beloved capitalism. Yes, you are grubbing well, messieurs counter-revolutionaries. New Life, number 20, July 14th, 1906, signed Koba.